Putin is really pushing it, isn't he? One of the latest airstrikes, I think it was early this morning or late Sunday, Eastern time in this country, but one of his most recent strikes was only about 10 or 12 miles from the border with Poland. He's getting very close to NATO territory, and eventually these Russian fighter pilots who are tasked with killing civilians, will fuck up, and they're going to drop a bomb in Poland or one of the other countries that border Ukraine. And then we'll see what happens, won't we? Then we'll see what happens. These are very fraught times. At this point, anything could happen. The Russians now are begging the Chinese for military assistance? What the fuck? Really? That speaks volumes, doesn't it? Over the weekend, Putin expanded his murder spree to western Ukraine. I guess this was yesterday. And missiles were fired near the city of Lviv. And a couple of them hit a large military base close to the Polish border. That's what I'm talking about. And in that missile attack, reportedly dozens of people were killed. And the war comes closer to the borders of a NATO country. And that attack came less than a day after Putin threatened to attack Western weapons shipments to Ukraine. I mean, Putin is making it very clear that he'll do anything to destroy Ukraine, to absorb it. And what are we doing? What is the United States? What is NATO doing? Are we waiting? Are we waiting until these ancient cities in Ukraine are utterly destroyed like the ancient cities in Syria were and the ancient cities in Chechnya? Is that what we're waiting for? The only good news, and it's not good news, I don't want to use that term, the only news that is digestible is the fact that the northwest city of Lviv, so far, as I'm recording this, has largely been spared from Putin's relentless bombardment of these cities in Ukraine and the slaughter of civilians. Instead, that city, Lviv, has become almost like a gathering point, ground zero for displaced Ukrainians. According to various reports, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have flooded into that city, trying to find some kind of safety for themselves and their children. A lot of them are just using it as a stopping point before making their way onto the Polish border, which is only about 40 miles from Lviv to Poland. But Putin's war, his bombardment, his murder spree is getting closer and closer to Lviv. According to reports, Russian forces fired more than 30 missiles at that military training ground on Sunday, Yavoriv, I believe it's called Yavoriv. And that's according to Lviv's military administration. Now that base, there's something that we should pay attention to. That military base has held joint drills with NATO, with Western military personnel on that base, including the United States. You see where this is going, right? A witness, this is according to CNN, a witness who was on the base when the strike happened, told CNN of hearing, quote, a sudden clap, end quote, from a bomb shelter. And this person added that the explosion craters were 10 meters deep, and there are fears people are under the rubble. The authorities there said at least 35 people were killed, 150 injured in what Ukraine's defense minister, Reznikov, describes as a terrorist attack near the EU-NATO border. We need to be aware of this, folks. Now, there were no reports so far of foreign nationals among the casualties. That's according to Ukraine defense officials. I'll get to that in a second. President Zelensky said yesterday that it was only a matter of time before Russia's military assault on Ukraine expanded to members of NATO unless NATO installs a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I've gone back and forth on this issue, but now I'm back on this of the opinion that yes, why aren't we doing this? In a video address Sunday posted on Zelensky's Facebook page, he said, quote, "Last year, I made a clear warning to NATO leaders that if there were no tough preventive sanctions against Russia, it would start a war. And now I repeat again, if you do not close our sky, it is only a matter of time before Russian missiles fall on your territory, NATO territory, on the homes of citizens of NATO countries." End quote. We need to be aware of this so it doesn't come as a shock. And Jake Sullivan, who is Biden's national security advisor, was on CNN, and he said that the strikes on Lviv were a sign that things were not going according to Putin's plan. Sullivan said this, quote, "Putin is frustrated by the fact that his forces are not making the kind of progress that he thought that they would make against major cities, including Kyiv. So he's expanding the number of targets. He's lashing out, and he's trying to cause damage in every part of the country." End quote. Putin, this is not a quote from Sullivan, this is a quote from Mike Malloy, Putin needs to be assassinated as quickly as possible. No, I don't know how to do it. Hell no. But the key to ending this is killing Putin. And then a senior U.S. official on Sunday, said, it was just yesterday, said that Russia had asked China for military assistance in Ukraine, including drones, which speaks volumes to me about the state of the Russian war machine. I wonder if any of Putin's nukes are workable. I wonder if the launch systems are not rusted down to bullshit because Putin is such an asshole. And the Russian military is more like troglodytes than they are a fighting force, the senior command level anyway. And I just wonder sometimes, asking China for drones? Really? So getting assistance from the Chinese, and boy, this better not happen. I mean, if it does, the world is fucked. I mean, if China and Russia combine to continue the slaughter in Ukraine, China will immediately attack Taiwan. We have made it clear for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years that an attack on Taiwan would be considered an attack on the United States. CNN asked about these reports of Russia's request for military aid, and a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. said, quote, "I've never heard of that," end quote, which is a non-answer. I've never heard of that. That doesn't mean shit. The guy's name is Liu Pengyu. Zelensky alluded to talks that were set for today. I don't know if they occurred or not. But when Zelensky talked on Sunday, he made reference to those talks, saying that his country's delegation to those talks, quote, "has a clear task to do everything to ensure a meeting of the presidents the meeting that I am sure people are waiting for, end quote. He's talking about President Zelensky and the murderous piece of human shit, President Putin, Donald Trump's handler. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.